And there are extra credit opportunities, including the Kahoot and community service. So if you do community service like the blood drive, like hosted yesterday, then you could send proof to our email, or there's also an extra credit form that we'll show later. And the Kahoot, the top 3 players will basically get point extra credit each, and the person with the most points in the quarter gets $10.
To check out all the opportunities that will be due within this week and next week, and also the next few months. So yeah, don't forget to sign up for them. Also, MOA will be selling club merch very soon. We'll be selling tote bags, and these are the 3 designs. And please scan a QR code and select your favorite design. And I will also drop the link in the chat. And please fill out the form.
Yeah, we'll leave this up for a few seconds. And we're planning on purchasing tote bags starting spring quarter, and we'll be distributing it then. So if you're interested, please fill out the form so we know.
All right. Make sure to join our email list, because that's what we will be releasing email recaps, as well as opportunities and any updates with our club. We also have a QR code for our Instagram and our Linktree. I'm sorry, for our Discord and our Linktree. But make sure to follow us on our socials to stay connected.
And without further ado, let's introduce Jacqueline Do, who is the co-founder of MOA herself. And she's also in her 2nd year of medical school at UMass Chan School of Medicine. And she'll be discussing her journey from De Anza up until medical school.
Well, thank you for the intro. Definitely not the OG, just happy to be here and welcome you all. I will share my screen. Let's see. Sorry, just give me a moment. Technical difficulties, of course. Oh, just kidding, not share. Good thing they don't ask you about your ability to do Zoom for medical school, because that's something that we all had to learn. Can you all see the slides okay?
Yes.
Awesome sauce. All right, so I understand that you guys are on your 10th week right now, so thank you all for coming. And I know it can be a challenging time just preparing for finals and everything, but it's also nice to just give yourself a break, hear my boring story, and feel free just to unmute at any point. I'm more than happy to answer questions as we go, or just whenever you have a question that pops up. There will be time for questions at the end too, though. So if I'll do my best to keep a track of the chat, but just feel free to chime in whenever. All right, so I guess this is what we're going to talk about today. So the roots of MOA, this is always a fun thing to discuss. I started De Anza when I was a junior in high school. I was a part of a program called Middle College, where you do your 3rd and 4th year of high school at De Anza. And at the time, my sister and my mom were both at De Anza. My sister was in her 1st year as a transfer student. My mom was just taking classes, paralegal classes. And what was really neat was that we had just some family friends that had global nonprofits that really spoke to us, because we knew that what they were doing was to promote sustainable nonprofit activities in places like Vietnam, Papua New Guinea, and Nepal. And so we were thinking, wow, like there's some great work out there, great medical philanthropy. And at De Anza, unfortunately, at the time, there was no pre-medical or pre-health club at the time. And so pretty much how MOA began in its roots was we wanted to make sure we were fulfilling the need for all potential pre-health students, whether that be nursing, physicians, physician's assistants, from all colors of the rainbow, to just have a place to have a community of people who may be interested or are considering something in medicine, or at the very least enjoy something along the realms of science, math, and the STEAM field, including art. So you find a need and you fill it. And this is just a picture. Let me see if I can add a spotlight, if you can see my cursor. This is just me and my sister being silly. This is my mom, and this is me and my sister when we were little. And again, it was just, we wanted to promote a community of, I think there's, unfortunately, sometimes when we think of pre-med culture, it's very competitive. People think that, oh, you have to kind of go in it for yourself, but that's not what physicians do, or at least that's not what we thought it should be like. So what we wanted to do was cultivate a community and provide a platform for future medical providers, as well as healthcare professionals, to really grow, engage, explore, engage, and excel. And those were the 3 E's that we came up with. And so interestingly enough, MOA did not used to be MOA. It was actually called Papa's Prosthetics MD. And this was our baby at the time. And the reason why it was called that was that we were originally promoting awareness and raising profits for the Papua New Guinea Stanford Medical Project and the Prosthetics Outreach Foundation. So we were thinking PPMD, Papa's Prosthetics MD, combining those two together and really trying to promote awareness for these two to help others step into a better future. As our club evolved over the years, we started it in the very beginnings of 2013. So we started thinking about it in 2012, and then it was officially recognized as a club in 2013, so 9 years ago. I feel old right now, but 9 years ago was when we started it, and it was PPMD. And then over the years, we've noticed that a lot of the pre-health students that wanted to join MOA or PPMD were interested in learning more about health-related professions. So we wanted to make it a little bit more of a broad club and just and attract more individuals who didn't really know what is Papa's Prosthetics MD. Rebranding as MOA, or the Medical Outreach Association, was just a lot more clear during club day of explaining what we were as a club. So that was our first official kind of logo. And over the years, it's transitioned to this one, which I really like. We have some great artists in our club, and I'm glad that it's still up and going. So a little bit more about why MOA and just why medicine in general. This is kind of transitioning into something that I thought about when I was thinking maybe medicine or maybe something else. I do want to kind of preface that I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I think I had an interest in science, and I knew that I wanted to make an impact or have purpose in whatever career that I chose. But I never was really, like, I didn't know when I was 2 years old that I wanted to go into medicine. And just another thing is that as I share what, kind of what drew me to medicine, it's a good idea if you are considering medicine to think about this too, because this is your personal statement. This is going to be the question that they ask you on your application to medical school is, why do you want to get into medical school? And it seems really simple, but sometimes the simplest questions, like tell me about yourself, are the most challenging, because you really have to encapsulate everything of your professional self and how you see yourself grow. And so the way that I ultimately decided, like, I want to do medicine, is that it really encompassed all the 3 things that matter to me in life. One was that it wove all my passions together of being able to teach my patients, being able to share knowledge in a way that is accessible. Although medicine itself is very complex in our bodies, whether that be the physiology and the function behind it or the abnormal functioning in the body, it can get very complex. But when you break it down into its component parts and you teach and you kind of become that patient's advocate, then it becomes very simple and you get to be able to advocate and also share what you think is going on with them, and you help them, guide them to a better future or just better health in general. So it's kind of like the fact that I've always enjoyed teaching. So medicine encompassed that aspect of it. I'm a total geek and I'm not afraid to hide that. So the fact that you're always learning in medicine is one of the things that can be challenging about it, but also the most rewarding, because the journey of learning doesn't end once you get into med school or even after medical school when you're a resident or when you're an attending. So that really drew me to medicine. And then also the third thing is just the fact that you are treating the human condition, that you have this great capacity to heal people. And I really wanted to push myself to be the best that I could be professionally and personally. So that's why I decided to go into medicine, and for other like personal reasons, just seeing seeing my best friend almost pass away from a staph infection and stuff along those lines. But whatever it may be for you, it is a very personal thing. And I do encourage you to start thinking about it. And another thing is, why not medicine is something that a lot of people may ask you, whether in interview or on the application itself, is why not nursing? Why not becoming a physician's assistant? All of these professions, you can have a great impact and teach your future patients. So, and I don't think one is better than the other or anything like that. It's a whole team, and we need all team members in to have this whole functioning unit. It's just a matter of like what matters to you and why you may want to pursue becoming a medical doctor or something along those lines. And I think what's really unique to everyone here today is that you have this great opportunity at Anza to really dive in and take the time to answer this question, why? I think in university, there's a lot of other distractions of like, you're living in a dorm, you're not at home, you're not in your own element, you're trying to find out who you are, you're trying to make new friends. It's just a lot going on. When you're at Anza, you have this really unique, it's a very unique time for you to not only develop a strong basis in your scientific knowledge and that foundation, but also kind of piecing together why you might want to go into medicine. Once you kind of figure out that why, the how is just, it's a lot easier, and it becomes almost like, it's like step after step. You take one step at a time and you have help along the way, which we'll kind of get to as this talk progresses. And by a show of hands, actually, if you don't mind, how many of you guys have heard of the book Grit by Angela Duckworth? Just out of curiosity. Okay, so cool. It's a great book. FYI, I have no conflicts of interest, or I don't get anything for doing this talk. I'm purely doing this to try and help as many people as possible. But I really enjoyed reading this book. If you are not a huge reader, she also has a TED Talk, but she kind of goes into how it's important to kind of find that purpose, or what propels you to put in the long hours and time into a passion of yours. And it's a recipe for grit. And like, having that grit is something that, whether you go into medicine or not, is just a characteristic that you can build and kind of bring you and inch you closer to your goals. So highly recommend if you like reading or listening to audiobooks or watching TED Talks when you eat or something like that. So next thing is how do you build your narrative? So I know from my understanding is a lot of you guys are probably going to apply to transfer soon or, within the next few years or so. And building your narrative is something that is so unique. It's fun. It can be stressful. Don't get me wrong. Not going to lie there. But it's also a really fun time for you to reflect on your experiences at Anza and just your life up until that point. And I want to give a friendly reminder to everyone that don't be afraid to be yourself. And you are the best version of yourself. And you all have such great, I feel as though community college students and going to Anza, you have to develop so much more grit. And actually in the book, it references transfer students have a higher score of grit than those who go straight to university. So you are in a very unique group, demographic of individuals. And I think that building your narrative now, thinking about how you want to present yourself in a professional manner is something that you can start doing now. And I think this was really hard for me. And I actually talked to Tom Nguyen, our current MOA advisor, about how do I write about myself? This is so weird for me. I don't like talking about myself unless I feel like I can maybe help someone by sharing my story. But it's a great time for you to reflect and just sometimes having a simple journal by your side. And maybe when you're eating your Cheerios in the morning, or you're eating your ramen, or you're eating whatever. I like to eat a lot, if you haven't guessed. And something pops up in your mind and that you're like, oh yeah, that was a really unique experience that I had, or I thought that was interesting. Just jot it down. And sometimes you'd be surprised about how that can kind of turn and be woven into your narrative. So just, a little bit whenever you feel like it. Another thing that I did was I journaled 15 minutes a day when I was at Anza, and just journaling about anything, whether that be a way to relieve my stress from an upcoming midterm, or just chatting about a cute dog that I saw that day. Whatever it is, writing about it is very cathartic. So I really enjoy that. And again, it kind of helps you reflect on being kind of developing your inner voice and putting it into words. So also, I'm sorry I haven't been checking the chat, but I'm going to just take a quick break now. Yes, love yourself. I love that, Chloe. Transfer kids unite. I'm always a transfer kid. I fully identify as a Anza student. I consider Anza my full college experience, not necessarily my time at UCLA. Yeah, I love it. Love in the comments. Alrighty, so let's see what's next. All right, so I guess it's my journey now. Let me just say my journey is still going on, still in med school, still have to pass all my classes. P equals MD though, if you've heard that term before. Once you get into medical school, once you get into medical school, passing is actually, it's a challenge. I'm not gonna lie. It's you get thrown a lot of material in a very condensed amount of time. But you don't have to stress about getting that A. You have to just focus on really learning and understanding it, which we'll talk about soon. But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It will be okay. We'll go through it. We'll go through it. Exactly. P equals MD. Whenever you're something out or something like that, just remember that. And now step 1 is pass fail as well, which is nice. Which is when I'm taking that in a month. But don't need to talk about that now. Sorry, I digress. Okay, so the starting blocks. This is where it all started at Anza for me. And again, as mentioned, Anza is a great place for you to build a very strong basic science foundation. So the classes that you're taking, Gen Chem, Bio 6A, B, and C, Chem 1A through C. I took OChem at Anza as well. What else is there? Oh, calculus. Yeah, we love OChem, right? Dr. Gray. And who else? Who else was there? Yes, we love Dr. Gray. That's who I had. I know the other OChem professors are great too. Oh, I do not know Dr. Miller, but I'm sure they're great. But yeah, again, so I think although medical school applications have quote unquote transitioned to a holistic approach, they still need to know that you can succeed in medical school because it is a very rigorous, it is on the more challenging side of all the professional schools. So they want to know that your science foundation is strong enough that you can build upon it quite easily. And I think Anza did a great job with that, like investing the time to really study your amino acids and stuff like that is time not wasted. I know it's not always fun. Been there, done that. But if you kind of keep in perspective that it's going to help you not only for the dreaded MCAT or whatever, but it's going to help you in medical school, and it's going to help you understand the underlying physiology of maybe a future disease that you'll see as a future practitioner, I think it kind of helps get you through. And I know it seems far away, but I think understanding from the beginning, if you are dedicated to what you're learning and you find fun in it and you find fun ways to motivate yourself, it's going to serve you really well in the future. And so again, like number one is always focusing on really understanding what you're learning. And Anza is a great place to learn. It's not always easy. There were some classes like physics that I really struggled with, but there are tutoring services available, which I utilize. I have no shame in using the tutoring services. They are great. There are students who have gone through the material themselves and are there to help you. Or you can find a friend and study with them and do questions together. I always find that helpful too. Another thing at Anza is cultivating your interests. Yes, study buddies are good. So cultivating those interests is huge. So I've been a swimmer for, 17-ish years. So I tried to do a homage to like a starting block, but whatever that may be, whether that's like some kind of sport that you might be interested in the chat, do you guys want to share like what kind of hobbies you guys might have? I'm just curious. Or you can feel free to like unmute yourself too. Awesome. I'm glad that you like swimming. Yeah, I mean, definitely consider joining the swim team too. It's really fun. Chess, art, photography, and Minecraft. I love Minecraft. Well, I have friends that love Minecraft. I take that back, and I like to joke about it with them. Pen pal. Oh, I love that. Food blogging. Oh my goodness. I need to have access to this food blog because I'm obsessed about food, Johnny. Yeah, I would love to see your food blog if you don't mind sharing that. But whatever it is, cultivating your interest now, I think it's a great time to do that because this is what makes you unique. And although there's a lot of swimmers out there and whatnot, like whatever you find has contributed to your wellness, your happiness, and your personal development, this is what they're going to ask you, not only on the application or in your interviews, but just in general life. Like what makes you more than just your GPA and MCAT and whatnot? Like what makes you human? Because again, at the end of the day, you are treating humans. And so they want to know that you are human yourself and that you have something that can, contribute to that human condition of yours. Another thing is that because Anza is like in the hub of the Bay Area, for those who are interested, I will say that a good amount of schools will place varying levels of emphasis on research. So when I was at Anza, I did utilize, at the time they didn't have like a connection with Stanford, but like I think they have it now where you can like volunteer to be a research assistant. And if you guys are interested in that, feel free to reach out to me. I have my email at the end and I can also put it in the chat. But if you're interested in doing research, particularly maybe in like psychology. I did it in social neuroscience at the Stanford Social Neuroscience Lab, which I loved. And that's what I presented here in this picture with my mom and dad. It was a lot of fun. And I think that because it took out like 10 to 12 hours a week of my, like a week, those 12 hours a week out of my, studying time, I really had to like make sure I learned how to prioritize my time better as well. So if research is something that you're interested in doing, I think definitely tap into like what's nearby and utilize all the opportunities that are shared within the MOA portal, or feel free to reach out to me about that as well. Again, similar along the same thread of cultivating interest, honing in on your unique experiences. And lastly, again, like enjoy your time with your family and friends. Like whether if you're an international student, then like I know that there are some really great clubs that you can feel connected with other international students and just, your other friends in your classes, OChem lab, chemistry lab. There's a joke that you're different, there's an end in friend, but there's no end in lab partner. I'm still friends with my lab partner from Gen Chem 1A. He's actually in medical school right now too. He was at De Anza. He transferred the same year as me. He did not do middle college, but he went in as a transfer student and he did a post-bac program in Colorado. His name is Jackson. And now he's a first-year medical student in Ohio. So just know that there are many people in your current place that were unsure of like how De Anza is going to prepare you in a future in medicine, and it most certainly can, and it most certainly will if you utilize whatever is near you. Very cool, psych major. Yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Is it Ruchiria? I'm sorry, I'm really bad with pronouncing names. Ruchiria. Feel free to reach out to me and I can point you in the right direction. Are there any questions about just this part? Feel free to ask anything and interrupt. I do not mind. Oh yeah, and so before you know it, you're going to be graduating. So that's my crazy uncle and my mom and dad. That's when I graduated at De Anza, which was a really great time. I loved my time at De Anza, and my fingers are crossed that you enjoy your time at De Anza as well. So after De Anza comes university. And my dream school was always UCLA. My sister transferred, she was also a De Anza student, then she transferred to Cal. I did not feel the same way about Cal as I did as UCLA. And so I was super happy when I got the acceptance letter. I originally actually started off as a psychobiology major, which is behavioral neuroscience. But then I transitioned to, against my friend's suggestions, to do neuroscience because I wanted to, psychobio is really cool. There is, Amy, psychobio is really cool. It is a little bit more psychology focused than I was looking for. So that's the reason why I changed to neuroscience. But I have plenty of friends who did psychobio and loved it. So I graduated in 2018. Extracurriculars, I mean, you can feel free to ask me more about them, but I honestly just did stuff that I loved. And I think that's the best advice I could give to you with extracurriculars is just do stuff that you love to do. And don't ever do something because you think it's what you should do. Because when you talk about it or when you write about it, people will know if it resonated with you or if you just did it because you thought you had to. And I think that when you find an opportunity that may not even seem remotely related to medicine, but you feel like you've developed as an individual, I think that speaks volumes. Because let's be honest, everyone applying into medical school is going to have similar threads of experiences with research and shadowing experiences and stuff like that. What makes you different is stuff that might be completely out there, like food blogging or joining the swim club or what was else, like art or doing taekwondo or playing chess, stuff along those lines that are a little bit different, but have contributed to your personal growth, I think are important to not get rid of. I'm going to make a small digression away from my personal story, but my friend who is currently a third-year medical student at UCLA, during his UCLA interview, he talked about League of Legends, about he talked about League of Legends when they asked him about how he was able to work well in a group environment. So he didn't talk about like his experience with the Vietnamese Student Association, or he didn't talk about doing club basketball or something along those lines. He talked about League of Legends. As you can probably tell, he didn't do too poorly on his interview, and he's there now as a medical student. So I think it had something to do with his interviewer had a son that played League of Legends and realized that, oh, maybe she can give his or her son a little bit more playing time of League of Legends since he had such a transformative experience. But anyways, again, just kind of reiterating the importance of doing things that make you happy. And it can really show when you talk about it in an interview or you write about it in your in your application, that it was something that was significant to you. All right. And another thing is that just when you are at university, yes, make sure to keep doing what makes you happy. And then also to continue to build upon that strong science background, because it will help you in that you don't have to relearn as much material for any exam or anything like that in the future. I'm not even going to say the word because you guys already know it. And the main reason why that is important of like doing well on standardized exams or just in your classes in general is that you want to prove to the admission committees that you can succeed in medical school. They normally have like a minimum threshold, like roughly like an MCAT that they want to see, just so that they know that you can pass your board exams in the future and juggle a full course load and doctoring classes and stuff along those lines. So Amy asked, is there a noticeable difference in the rigor between UCLA and De Anza? I think that De Anza prepared me very well for UCLA. I do think that the first quarter was a bit of an adjustment, more from the perspective of I was away from home, had to learn how to, okay, I knew how to do laundry before leaving, but like just other like random things that you don't think about when like, you know, you're at home in the comfort of home and have home cooked meals, like how to make rice well. Like I messed up making rice, I think a good 3 times before I like figured out how to master it. Yes. So you kind of learn as you go. And so I think it was like an adjustment just from like a living perspective. I think that De Anza is probably one of the better community colleges to prepare you for a school like UCLA or Berkeley. My sister also really felt very well prepared. The only thing for Berkeley, if you are like interested in Berkeley, then I do know that the system is different because they are on semester system. So just like adjusting to like feeling the urge to procrastinate a bit more versus going to a school like Davis or UCLA or UC San Diego or one of those schools where it's also on a quarter system, which De Anza prepares you really well for. It is harder in the regard of you are taking more upper division classes, but assuming that you are choosing a major that interests you, you are more interested in it. So you are taking the classes that you want to take. And so that makes, for me at least, that makes learning it a lot easier. Even though even though a lot of people say that the neuroscience major is one of the most challenging at UCLA, I actually found studying for my psychology classes when I was a psychobiology major harder than neuroscience. It was just because my level of interest. So that's why, like, in addition to like, journaling or taking time to reflect on what interests you, that is important also for kind of choosing what kind of major you want to go into. It's okay if you don't know. Like, again, like I changed my major when I was at UCLA. So like, don't feel pressure to know that, but kind of figure out like what classes do you enjoy and what you might want to learn more about. And that will kind of help guide you into your decision-making process. But I do think UCLA prepared me very well. And one of the main things is also like feeling like you have a support system is really important. If you can live in a dorm and that you're like, UCLA's have dorms. So like building that network really helps you get through as well. And, like make sure to have fun. I think it's a very unique time. You don't get to go back and go to Anza again, even though I wish I could, or like do university over again. So really just cherishing that time is a lot of fun. Let's see if there's anything else in the
Quick
chat.
question.
Yes.
Did you ever did you create a branch of MOA at UCLA, or like did you bring MOA with you to?
Yeah, so that was something I was considering. That's a great question, Natalia. I was considering doing that. But I think if you recall from like the roots of why we started MOA was because I felt like we wanted to fill a need because there was no pre-health club. There are like 5 pre-health clubs at UCLA. So I was like, I feel like if I were to create MOA here, it would just be to put it on my resume. And I'm not that kind of a person. So I didn't feel the need to create a club just for the sake of creating a club. And so that I could write that I did. So I did not, but I didn't even join any pre-health or pre-med clubs at UCLA. To be honest, I don't think any UCLA folks or like adcoms or whatever are going to see this. I didn't find their pre-health counseling to be particularly helpful. Honestly, I felt like I just at bigger schools, like the UC schools, the resources are there, but you kind of need to like be very proactive in seeking them out just because there's so many students. I think that going to a school like UCLA is helpful in the regard of like people know that it's a reputable school and that if you can succeed at UCLA, most likely you can succeed in medical school. And also in terms of like the already sustaining groups and organizations that are there are really great. Like for example, these pictures are from this 5K walk that we put on to raise money for the Mattel Children's Hospital. So I think that year we raised 75K for the Chase. It's like to provide terminally ill children with I think it was life specialist is the term, where they have like people to be there for them and, play cards with them or stuff along those lines. So again, there are so many organizations and clubs in university and it can be overwhelming. I think finding 1 or 2 that speak to you is really great and kind of just sticking with those. And let's see if there's anything else. I'm liking all of these suggestions of how to make rice because I feel like I can always get better with my rice making skills. And like, there's so many different kinds of rice too. There's not just white rice, there's brown rice, there's purple rice, there's like multicolor rice. Alrighty, so jasmine rice, basmati, agreed. Great, there's great integrity to rice as well, I think too. Any other questions that you may have? All right, so again, I meant to bring this in later. I'm gonna make it vanish and then have it come back. Before you know it, you'll also graduate university, and then it will move on to your application or gap years. So I decided that I wanted to take some time before going straight into medical school for various reasons. One of them being that because I had been away from home, I'm originally from the Bay Area. I wanted to come back and see my family before starting medical school, wherever that would be. I knew that I was going to apply very broadly, not just in California, but also in like right next door in Massachusetts is where I am. So, you know, applied there too. So that being said, I knew I wanted to take, you know, some time off before starting medical school. And I think there's always like hesitation to do that of like, how can I make the most out of my time? And like, I think there is an urge to want to go straight through, which you most certainly can. I think there is definitely a kind of like a transition for a lot of people taking 1 or 2, mostly 2 gap years, because they want to make sure that you know that you want to go into medicine and not something else. Because I think for a lot of people who maybe didn't go to community college and had the opportunity to explore things outside of medicine, it's very easy to pigeonhole yourself and to say like, I'm pre-med, I'm only going to do pre-med classes, I'm only going to do this. They want to see that you have experienced things, you've experienced life a bit, and you know that you do still want to commit to medicine. So that's why I really enjoyed my gap years. I did some research at Santa Clara Valley Med. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. One of my favorite places. I love Santa Clara Valley Med. Very caring community. So again, like one thing to kind of focus in on during this time is how you can develop not only professionally, but also as a person. And I think it's very easy to forget that there's more to you than your numbers and what you put on your application. I know it's a very involved process, and it's like 18 months long if you include, you know, the time of prep and to like when you receive your last acceptance or rejection letter. It's a long chunk of time. And I just think that you don't want to forget about like nurturing your soul and like knowing that no matter what happens, you are a beautiful person, and that doing things to make sure that you contribute to your own personhood and the human side of you, or what makes you feel human, is so important, and it should not ever be forgotten. So don't take that as time like wasted. I think it's time that's well spent. And never feel guilty about self-care, I think is one thing that I had to learn myself. And so a gap year is a good time to kind of cultivate those interests and take care of yourself before you go get into the trenches, but the fun trenches. I'll let you know that they're fun too. It's not just hard work. So yeah, like another thing is like stuff that you couldn't do before. Like I went to Davis to go to a summer games for the Special Olympics, which was so much fun, and it was a great community. So like whatever speaks to you, I encourage you to do it. Or, you know, if you want to travel and stuff like that. And again, like during this time is a great time to start writing and reflecting upon your experiences up until that point, and just to kind of see how you can grow as a person. I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record. I'll stop. Okay, so now this is where we are now, I guess, or the beginning of where I'm at. So currently I'm at UMass Medical School, which has been rebranded as the T.H. Chan School of Medicine at UMass Chan Medical School, after a very generous donation by Dr. Chan. And so just medical school, like just getting into medical school in general was, it was a lot of work getting up to this point, but it's a huge relief when you get like that first acceptance letter, and it's a lot of fun. And I would say that once you do get into medical school, and I know that if you are committed and you seek out the proper mentorship and stuff like that, you most certainly can get into medical school. That is not a question that you should have for yourself or doubt in any capacity that you can. I know that I felt that, and I was doubting myself if I could do it, but you most certainly can if you are committed and want it enough and like put in the time and effort. That being said, when you do actually get into medical school, it's like learning 2.0. It's like you're learning how to learn your first 2 years. If you have heard, and it seems as though some of us may be familiar with Anki, or, it's honestly just like Quizlet, but maybe a little bit more, less fancy and a little bit more bland. But there are so many add-ons that like people add, like sunset backgrounds and stuff to try and jazz it up to make a dull thing less dull. So one thing that you'll learn, and this is like another topic in itself, but when you're in medical school, you don't really realize how much more you can learn or how much more efficiently you can learn until you're kind of put into like the positive stressors of medical school. And that may just be like learning to quiz yourself and actively learn. There are some really great videos out there that I'm more than happy to share with you. I don't want to like scare you or anything like that now, because like aside from this, like maybe one thing you can take away from it, if you use Quizlet now for like studying for Dianza in your college classes right now, great. You are in a great position now, because the more you can quiz yourself, the more active learning you do, the better. So if you can start, keep on doing those Quizlets, or like dabble into Anki if you want, but definitely not necessary. Somehow quizzing yourself on the material, or like having a piece of paper and covering the answer, is super helpful. And it's going to help you if you do end up going into medical school, nursing school, PA school, whatever you may have you, or just any school in general, university. So there's a running joke that you can never watch lectures at regular speed once you start medical school anymore, and you only watch lectures at 2-point speed or higher. And everyone just sounds like mice at that point, but you can still understand it to a certain level. But again, like medical school is so much fun. I mean, it sounds a little crazy at times, but it's also such a great time for you to develop both personally and professionally. And I think it's a very unique opportunity that many people do not get. Is there a question?
You know what? I think you're answering it right now, but I just wanted to ask like about your friendships that you made, and like if you could compare them from Dianza to UCLA to medical school, and
Yeah.
like do you feel like you develop like really long-term friendships in medical school?
I would say the people that I have met in medical school are going to be my bridesmaids and just my future friends for life. I mean, I feel the same way with my friends at Dianza, but I've like added to my close-knit circle of friends from my time at UMass. I mean, so I still have a group chat from my Dianza friends called Team Possible. I know we're super geeky, I'm sorry. Where we still like keep up to date of like what we're doing. And so like I definitely still have friends from Dianza that I keep in contact with. And it's so important to maintain those friendships. And you'd be surprised like how like they're so important from a perspective of like they add so much richness to your life that like it can't even be quantified. I feel like the same thing with family. Like I talk like even in the height of my dedicated studying for my boards, I still talk, either call on the phone or FaceTime with my family every day. It's just something that like has become a habit, and like I feel weird not doing it. And it's something that you don't want to neglect those friendships or stop building them, because the reality is that I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this as just like fact that it doesn't necessarily get easier to maintain and form lasting friendships and relationships, because life gets more complex and complicated, it's also like more fun and like beautiful and whatnot. But you just have more things that get onto your plate. And so if you, from a very early standpoint, prioritize those friendships and relationships, it's going to last a lot longer, and it's going to add depth and meaning to your life, like throughout. So I think that, sorry for the very long-winded answer, but yes, I definitely have made some of my best friends in medical school, and people who I see being friends with until I'm like 90 or however old I get to be. I'd like to think I get to live that long at least, but lifelong friendships.
Thank you so much for answering. You're
Yeah,
like,
feel free.
like you brought so much warmth, and like, oh my God, your story is just very inspiring. I'm like getting ready to apply to medical school next cycle, and I'm taking my MCAT this summer. And it's
Yeah, you
like,
got this.
oh my God, like it's like very nerve-wracking. And it's just like, I don't know. I feel like as I get like when we're doing events like these, when I was in community college, it was like wasn't hitting me. It was like expiring. I'm like, cool, like this is happening. And now it's like I'm getting closer to the day, and like hearing you having an amazing experience at every school, it seems, it just makes me very happy, and I'm like more excited like for this process.
100%. I think that another thing is that it's hard. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. Like whatever I'm sharing with you is like, I'm trying to be as real and as transparent as possible. Med school is hard. Like, you know, you are bombarded with information, and it can be really stressful at times. There are many stress points during it. But what gets you through is like, you know, being up with your friends and being like, how do I understand the brachial plexus right now? Like, I don't know what's going on. And then like you watch a YouTube video that shows you how to understand the brachial plexus in 20 seconds. Like, wow, thank you so much, Lucy, or something like that. You remember, maybe I feel like I should remember the brachial plexus at this point, also because it's going to be on my boards. I remember some of it, but you also remember the moments, and you remember like all the memories that you've shared of like being in anatomy lab, like at, you know, 8 o'clock at night when you really should be just, you know, sleeping or something like that. Or, oh, I guess not everyone's a grandma like me. So like maybe not sleeping, but like relaxing at home. You remember those things, and you remember the friendships that you have made, and all those fun, like silly times that you've had. So it is hard, but it's worth it. And I think a recipe for burnout is if you just trench along the whole time without taking a moment to breathe, take a step back, and enjoy the good company surrounding you. And I've been very fortunate in my journey to be around and like, you know, just like be with people who are my people and just value similar things that I do, of like, you know, yeah, like we all obviously care about school. We all would like to do well and become good doctors in the future that care for our patients. But we also know that in order to provide the best care, we also have to take care of ourselves. And it's not selfish. I used to think it was selfish to do that, but that the reality is that if you are going to be instructing your future patients to be their best selves, you have to be at your best too. So as you can see, I'm a big believer of self-care, and just enriching your friendships. And don't feel like you ever have to neglect those things in your life for medicine. You already have to sacrifice your 20s, right? You don't have to sacrifice your precious time with your loved ones. When I say sacrifice, I'm just joking. It's just a lot of studying. Okay, so I got this question of like, what's the schedule like for a med student? And this looks kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie. This was, I think, in December when I still had my brain class and my organ systems class and, you know, other stuff. Yeah, but you know what? Like, Julie, you found it. Like, I still fit in time to watch Shang-Chi with my girlfriend. Like, you got to make sure you spend time enjoying the little things, right? No worries. Good to see you. And thanks for asking the question. So yeah, this may be a week of med school, something like that, a few weeks. But the reality is that the schedule of a med student is highly variable. And the nice thing about it is it's very flexible. And so I think one thing that you'll learn once you get into medical school is that you are just expected to learn the material. And so however you learn that is up to you. And if you decide to go to lecture, take notes in class, and be in lectures from 9 to 5, you do that. You do you. For me, I knew that I did better from watching the lectures later. And that meant that I would see the lectures later than some of my peers who went to lecture. But it also meant that I could fast forward over the things that I didn't think I needed to review as heavily, and that I could pause on things that I knew I needed to spend more time on. So it was easier for me to focus because I knew that during this time, I'm just going to watch this lecture, or during this time, I can do like dual screen, have the lecture on one side, have my notes on the other, and just get it done. It opens up a lot of time too if you end up watching lectures at a faster pace. You do end up having to review it. Obviously, just watching a lecture doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to retain it. Even going to lecture, not so much even. So that's the reason why I lecture capture and watch the lectures later, is because it gives me more time to study or do cards or something along those lines. But again, once you start medical school, you will figure out how you best learn. And the best thing I could say for that is you will figure that out a little bit by trial and error, and also just talking with your upperclassmen. A lot of med schools have something called a big sister, big sibling, big brother kind of mentorship thing, where you have a second year kind of guide you and show you the ropes of what worked, what didn't work. And you have a plethora of people wanting to help you. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. So, take certain advice take advice with a grain of salt. Once you figure out what works for you, just stick with it. And then maybe you can optimize it here and there. But just know that what you're doing, if it works for you, keep doing it. And, you can continue to, just keep on doing well in your classes and stuff like that. But again, so your schedule is going to be highly variable. It's not always going to look like what I had on the previous screen. Typically, this is from my experience at UMass, is that at least for first and second year, you'll have lectures, roughly 5 lectures a day. Which is quite a few, 5 lectures to review every day. And then once a week, you typically do some kind of doctoring class. So our doctoring class was called DCS, or Doctoring in Clinical Skills. And I think I know that every medical school has a doctoring class where you learn how to use a stethoscope, Snickers over here is learning or playing with my stethoscope. And you just kind of learn simple things like how to take a history, how to listen to heart sounds, lung sounds, stuff like that. Stuff that if you're interested in medicine, you're oh my God, this is so cool. And you also have time to reflect on what it means to have a white coat. What does it mean to be a physician, or a physician scientist, or a student doctor? And so those are fun reflection times and whatnot. For me, I always thought it was important, again, similar theme of weaving in some time for fun, family, and exercise. Even when during a more crazy week, as some of you may have pointed out, I still had time to watch Shang-Chi on a Friday night. Don't think you have to study on a Friday night unless you have something coming up and you maybe fell behind or something. But fitting in time for fun is super important. And I think it's very underrated. If you don't schedule in fun, you won't you're going to just keep on pushing it off on the back burner. So one thing, and this was actually I'm one of those people that watches productivity videos when I'm trying to be productively unproductive on YouTube when I know it's really not that good for me to do. But anyways, I still do it. And one of them, one of them is that like one of the first things you want to do is schedule in your fun before your obligations, because then you have something to look forward to every week. And you know that like, oh yeah, like Friday night, I'm going to be hanging out with my friend Michelle. We're going to pop some popcorn and we're going to watch Shang-Chi together. That means Monday through, up until Friday, I'm going to make sure that I'm focused on my studying and that I get done what I need to, such that I can really enjoy my Friday night off. A general rule is you want to at least have half a day off to yourself doing nothing medical related, no studying, nothing. Like maybe you want to cook a nice meal with a friend or a significant other, or watch a movie or go ice skating or something like that. Always having at least half a day or a day off to yourself, I think it sounds counterintuitive, but it makes you so much more productive. Because if you know you have less time to study, you're going to study better. So just something that I kind of encourage you to try doing even now. And again, like sometimes you might feel like my friend's cat shadow over here, like not wanting to watch lectures all day, every day. But overall, like it becomes more and more interesting. As you progress, the material that you see becomes increasingly relevant to the patients that you'll see in clinic during 3rd and 4th year, and then as a resident and as a full-fledged doctor. So it gets more challenging in terms of like the complexity of cases and presentations of diseases, but it gets so interesting and it makes the learning a lot more easy and not straightforward, but it's a lot easier in my opinion, because you are interested and invested in it. So again, I'm sorry I sound like a broken record, but wellness and community are some of the most important things I find, whether that be, it's like if you haven't started now, I think you guys are already in a really great place because you are here, you're at an MOA meeting, during week 10. I know maybe some of you were like debating, should I be studying now or should I, hang out with my MOA friends? I'm glad that you're here and you're listening to me babble on about wellness and self-care and all this silly stuff. Oh, okay, midterm tomorrow. I know that you got this, Amy. You can do it. If you feel comfortable enough to like hang out with us the day before a midterm, that means you got it in the bag. I have good vibes. I have a feeling you're gonna ace that. So again, echoing, I'm gonna give a full disclosure that I am on like the wellness committee. So this is kind of like something that's really important to me, of like prioritizing your wellness, because figuring out what makes you well nourished and like makes you feel whole again helps you extend yourself and like continually grow and learn better. So I think figuring that out now is great, and continuing that on throughout your like careers, I think is huge. And again, like if you like nature too, this is like at the botanical gardens out here in Mass that I really loved. And just like finding little things to do for yourself with friends and family, I think is really important. And again, finding your community, whether that be in your friend group, if you have the option, like let's say when you're applying to med schools and like, let's say you have a few options of different med schools to choose from, where do you see yourself being most happy? I think that's a really important question. Of course, there are other considering factors in your decision, but I think some of the key things and I think this can be kind of also be put into perspective of like when you're applying to UCs or just other schools. I feel like I'm so geared towards UCs, or like, I know there's other schools out there, private schools and the like Cal State, like Cal Poly and all those other great schools. When you're applying to colleges, think about where you will be most happy, because I believe that wherever you are most happy, you will do the best. Because if you are happy, you will feel more motivated to give your best effort and to put your best foot forward. So when you guys get a zillion acceptance letters to all the places that you want to transfer to, just think about where you will be most happy. And in the cases of medical schools, do you care more about a school that's focused on primary care and treating patients one-on-one, or do you care more maybe about research and the opportunities there and the innovation that's associated with that? Do you want to be in a more collaborative environment or a little bit more of a competitive one for specialties? Again, like other factors is cost. If there's a school that gave you a scholarship, praise the Lord for those that do. Taking that into consideration, because it is an investment, monetary, energy levels, time, all of that. It is a big chunk of your time and it is a big commitment, but it is something that I have found to be very worthwhile. And again, that's just my opinion, but I would say that a lot of my peers feel the same way, and that it is tough, but you grow so much in the process. Any questions about that? All right, so I'm sorry if I'm taking too much of your time, but let's move on to some do's and don'ts. I think when I was kind of in your shoes, I was like, I don't know how to do this. Like, there's so much going on. How can I move forward? And I think we've kind of touched upon these. I think we've touched upon these a little bit already about like what you might not want to do and things that you want to make sure to do. One of the key things that I've found to be important is to make sure you seek out mentors. And there are some great mentors at De Anza. All the teachers or all the professors there, I felt, or I would say a great majority of the professors that I've had at De Anza want to be there, and they want to be good, and they want to best guide you throughout the process. Do any of you guys have you guys ever had Dr. Muzi, Dr. M? She's one of my favorite professors. I still keep in contact with her. I visited her after my first semester or block of medical school. She was one of my greatest mentors. And like from a perspective of like, I always felt like she was there for me. And like, whether that be from like a letter of recommendation, which she just like said, like, Jackie, I want to write you a letter of rec. It's not even from that perspective, but just like from a supportive standpoint, when you identify someone that you resonate with as a professor, or, you know, as a medical student, like a medical student, or just someone further along in the journey, I think it really helps give you perspective. And I definitely encourage you to foster your mentorships, and also like once you get to a point, like once you transfer to a school or something, being a mentor is also a very unique relationship to have. Another thing is, I think similarly to like doing things that make you smile, finding one or two opportunities that really speak to you is important. It's very easy, or at least I found it very easy to want to do everything. The reality is that you can, it's hard, like it's very easy to spread yourself thin. So I would try, I know this is very difficult, but try to choose one or two things that you really want to do, because you need to sometimes allot yourself more time for like some things that you might not expect to happen, like a family member getting sick or injured, or studying that takes a little bit longer. So kind of keeping that in perspective. Another thing that I would suggest is also like be open to things outside of becoming a physician. I think, and I'm not saying that because I don't think you can do it. I think every single one of you can become a physician if you want to. I truly believe that. And the only reason why I put this as a do is that it's important for you to understand the differences of the team, the healthcare team, and understanding what your role may be as a physician, as opposed to a physician's assistant or a nurse. Because like that, if you can see yourself fulfilling that role and that's how you see yourself most most contributing, then go for it. If you see yourself like you want to spend more time with the patient and be at the bedside more and provide more comfort and whatnot, then nursing may be a better fit. And I don't think there's anything like inferior to that. I really don't like it when people say that. So again, another thing is that they may ask you that during an interview. If you get an interview to a medical school, sometimes they ask you like, why not nursing? Why not PA? Why not this? Why not that? So just thinking about that now for your personal sake, but also for like, future questions from professionals, it's good to think about that. Shadowing, again, like I think it's just kind of a rite of passage just to kind of see what it's like. Unfortunately, a lot of shadowing is very passive. And to be honest, I don't really like shadowing because I feel like I'm not contributing, but it is a good way for you to figure out if like you like to be in this environment and like you won't faint 24/7 or something like that. Again, being flexible and adaptable in how you learn, because you're constantly going to improve and like figure out how to do that better. Also just having fun. You are in a very unique stage of your life where you are budding as a professional, as a, academically, personally, and just like have fun with that. Like it's such a unique time, like, late teen or like your late teens or early 20s is a very cool time of like growth and development. Some things that I would kind of encourage you to kind of stray away from is like resume padding. People can see through it. And underestimating yourself. Again, I think that I feel like as a transfer student, we always feel like an underdog. But I always like the story of like the underdog, like kicking ass. So don't underestimate yourself, because I know you all can do it if you are all committed and work really hard to get there, and make sure that you reach out for help and seek out mentorship when you feel stuck, because no one needs to suffer or struggle alone. That is a mantra at UMass, is that, or just like, I guess just like in like a lot of our physicians did some training in like Boston, Harvard area. And like a very common trend is that never worry alone and never struggle alone, because you are never alone, and always seek help. And because there's always going to be someone there for you. Don't ever feel discouraged by failures or setbacks. I know this is so much easier said than done, because I'm not saying like you're not going to react. Like, of course, if you fail, you're going to feel bad. But it's like how you can like figure out like, how can I study better for this test that I didn't pass, or this quiz that I didn't pass, is like kind of the way for you to improve upon yourself. I think you not only learn so much more from failures, but you learn to adapt. It's like the greatest motivator to change. So I think if you think about it from that perspective, it will kind of help set you in a good framework. Chloe, I think imposter syndrome is something that everyone experiences to varying degrees. Again, like not alone, like literally, at least at UCLA during orientation, it was like one of the topics that was discussed in orientation, like right off the bat. Everyone feels like they don't belong there in the beginning. It's just a matter of like silencing that little voice and knowing that, no, I deserve to be here. I worked so hard to get here, and I'm going to continue to work hard to stay here and succeed. I think the best way to silence the self-doubt and questionings of yourself is to silence it with your hard work. That's what I found to work for me, is when I question if I can do something, I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. Because, if I gave my best, that's all that matters. I can figure out how to do things better if my best wasn't enough. But at the very least, if I did my best, I don't care what the result is. And I don't feel like an imposter because I gave it my all, and that's all I can ask of myself. And that's all that you can ask of yourself too. Again, like I'm not going to go too much into this, but again, like comparing yourself to others, not something you have to do. Of course, Chloe, no problem. I'm going to say there are a lot of overachievers in medicine. I love my friends. I love my friends in medicine. They have done some amazing stuff. It's very easy to fall to prey of being like, I did not do that. I didn't hear AIDS. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. But the reality is that you've done so much stuff yourself too. And so you are your best, like you are the original of yourself. So just be your best self and do your best to kind of like figure out how you can optimize being your best self as opposed to like trying to do something that someone else did. Another thing is like, I think if you're going into medicine just to help people, I think there's just so many other ways to help people than medicine. So I would encourage you obviously we all want to help people. I wouldn't want a doctor that doesn't want to help people, let's be honest, right? But like, I think if you dive more into that, like, what does that mean to help someone and like why medicine in particular, that will help you kind of pinpoint why medicine more so than just like, why not become a teacher or why not become go and become a firefighter or something like that. I think it will really help. And again, echoing, don't neglect your friendships or relationships because life will get more complex. And the sooner you prioritize, just like your friendships and your relationships, once you prioritize that, it will stay in your life and you won't ever lose that. And that's something that you really don't want to lose. So I'm going to move on to the next part. So certain resources. I think, I don't know if our MOA officers share the slides afterwards, or if you can like at least share the links to certain things. But I would just like for right now, like again, there's different stages of like this whole long process of getting into medical school. Right now, I would say with where you're at, again, like being most as reflective as you can be is going to help you a lot with your applications and give you the most options in terms of where you may be able to transfer to. So again, like if you can take 5 minutes a day to write down like, something that pops up in your mind or something that resonates with you, that's great. One thing that I did when I was at Anza was I just read a lot of different college essays, not to write anything like similar to what they wrote, but just to get an idea of how people share their stories and how people write about themselves. Because I thought it was very awkward of me to talk about myself in different, like in a vignette or something like that. So just seeing how other people do it can kind of like get the wheels turning of like, how can I write my story? And I think it's very helpful to do that. I love Tom. I think Tom is, he helped me write. So after I wrote my personal statement, he revised it and like he gave me pointers on like how to make it more succinct and stuff like that. So I think Tom has a background in journalism. I think he went to Berkeley and he did journalism. So he's very helpful with personal statement writing. And I would definitely, if you haven't done already or haven't thought about doing it in the future, to set up an appointment to have him review your personal statement with you. And I would suggest like just reaching out and being like, ask for general guidance first, so he gets a little bit of a sense of who you are as a person before you like share your personal statement. So he can see if like, can I see Jackie in this personal statement? Do I like, are her true colors being shown in this personal statement? Can I see Chloe? Like when I read this personal statement, do I see Chloe? Do I see Megan? Do I see Julie? Do I see Amy? Like, can I hear her when I read this? And if the answer is yes, that's probably a pretty good personal statement. Great. Thank you for sharing those. Yes, we love Tom. And then like some other resources. I don't want to take too much of your time because I know we're getting close to time, but there's some other resources like the MSAR is, I think it's like Unfortunately, you do have to pay for it, but you can probably share subscriptions with your friends if they're also applying around the same time. It just shares like the general GPA and MCAT requirements for every school, or not requirements, but like the averages to kind of like make sure that you apply for schools in like your reach, your like middle and also lower tier. It's very helpful when you're making your list of where to apply to. Very helpful. And I know, I just put it out there because I know everyone looks at it. Student Doctor Network, Reddit, like, we all look at it when we apply to medical school. I think sometimes it's helpful, but always use it with a grain of salt and don't like constantly refresh it to see who's gotten an interview invite, because that's something that a lot of people do and it can drive some people crazy. Similar along the same line of like reading some college essays. I really liked this personal statement. It's about a burger. It's on the accepted.com site. It's this direct link. The reason why I like it is that it's very memorable. I still remember it to this day after the first time I read it. So if you can write a personal statement that is that memorable, I think that's an indication that you had a good personal statement. My friend that I mentioned before about talking about League of Legends, his name is Michael. He started 2 businesses while in medical school, one of them being like helping pre-med students get into medical school. And he just has like all free like YouTube videos, and he like literally dissects his own like full application on YouTube, where like he goes through his personal statement and like critiques it. And he also critiques some of his friends' ones as well. And he talks about like how this could have been improved, why this was good and why this was bad. And he's just an astounding person. And he's a really good friend of mine. And once you get to that stage of you're in university, you're thinking about applying now, just like check out his YouTube channel or check out his website. Or, like at the very end of the day, reach out to me. Like I am more than happy to help you in whatever you need. I haven't started a business myself, but I will do my best to help in whatever capacity that I can. Anza is like my second home. It still is. So I love to see people from a community college get into medical school, because I think people underestimate us. And I know that you can all do it. So I just want to see if I can help you get there. And I know that you can. So there's my email. Feel free to reach out at any time. And I'll do my best to get back as soon as possible. If I'm like, right now I'm in my dedicated studying for my boards. So my replies may be a little bit slower, but I will respond and be like, can I respond to you? If it's not immediate, can I respond to you in like a week or something like that? I'll give you a timeline of when I can respond by. But again, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm more than happy to help. Want to see you all succeed, whether that be you going into medical school or you going into nursing or PA school or even something completely unrelated. Just don't hesitate. So if I could do it all over again, what would I do differently? To be honest, I would do it all over again. I really enjoyed my time throughout my journey. I think the only thing that I would have done is probably I would have studied less and enjoyed the journey a bit more and not rushed the process. I probably would have taken 2 gap years instead of 1, just to give myself more of a breather. But besides that, I would go into medicine again. Even though like I'm probably at one of my most stressful points in life, I love what I'm learning and I would do it again. So unfortunately, I'm sorry that if there are other mistakes that I can think of, I will share with you. But like from the perspective of this part, I do really enjoy where I'm at. And I love where I'm at right now and where I've been. Again, like medicine is a marathon, not a sprint. So rushing, like trying to get in, like rushing to get there is going to actually slow you down, because medicine is a marathon. If you're sprinting at the beginning of a marathon, you're going to burn out. So you got to figure out how you can pace yourself. And like, you know, you have your cheerleaders on the sidelines too. Like, I'm going to be one of your cheerleaders as well. So just want to see you all succeed and understand that it's a long journey, but you guys will all get there and continue to grow throughout it. Just some final thoughts. Again, you guys got this. And if I can do it, so can you. I am certainly not a genius. I struggled with a lot of science material. I don't have a photographic memory. I think it takes a lot longer for me to understand things, but I do think that once I understand it pretty well. So, but if I can do it, I think so can you. I love this quote by my anatomy professor, Dr. G. It's work hard, have fun, and be kind. So that's kind of the mantra that I go by. Make sure you work hard, have fun, and be kind to yourself and others. Because at the end of the day, like, that's what makes you human. That's what brings happiness into your day. Enjoy life one teaspoon at a time. I'm obsessed with boba. And I know, like, it's not an absence of doubt. Like, we all doubt ourselves at different points, but silencing those doubts with your hard work is something that is going to reap a lot of benefits in your professional aspirations. So that's it for me. Thank you guys all for listening. Are there any questions?
There's no question. Sorry, it's a background noise. It's super loud. I'm at T4 right now. But if anybody does have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. I think on the next slide, it says pictures. So we just want to take a picture really quick if anybody has to leave.
Let me stop my screen share. So
thank you. If any members would like to turn on their cameras and take a picture.
Gotta fix the hair. Gotta make sure we beautify ourselves.
Yeah. Hey, hello. Okay. Chloe, are you taking a picture?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. If you guys are comfortable, you can turn on your camera. All right. I'm gonna
I'll add a heart too. Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna take the photo right now. 3, 2. Okay, I took it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I believe there's a word of the day on the side. Or no, Megan, could you share screens, please?
Oh yeah.
We're just going to wrap up the meetings really quick. And if you do have questions, just once again, drop it in the chat. So since we're approaching the end of winter quarter, we are doing a winter feedback form. So if you guys have any feedbacks on what you liked or what you didn't like, anything at all, feel free to scan the QR code. Just leave your little comments there. The form is going to be anonymous. Thank you, Chloe, for dropping in the chat. Next slide, please. And here we have the extra credit point submission form. If you did blood donations, we are offering extra points. That's also the QR code if you'd like to scan it and to get your extra points for the end of the quarter reward. But other than that, that concludes our meeting. But once again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. Thank you, Chloe. I have a question though, if no one's gonna ask. I actually applied as a psychobiology major at UCLA, and it was very interesting how you said you switched. I was wondering, because when I applied, I was super into psychobio, and then I became a tutor for a year, and I realized it's all about the brain, and I want a more holistic view. I don't know if you can take classes where you can learn more about different body parts. It's probably just going to be all brain stuff, huh?
For psychobio, it's a lot of psychology. So you can technically take other bio classes in addition to your required major classes, but it does get very challenging just because, as you know, probably from Anza, to get into certain classes that are popular or might sound interesting, other people will also find it interesting. So if like if you're open to it and you know from like right now that you want to have a little bit more of a broad strokes understanding of just biology and like human biology or whatnot, then it may feel limiting to do something like psychobio, to be completely honest with you. Not to say that you can't take non-neuroscience psychology classes. It's just going to be harder to juggle, and like you may end up taking like an extra quarter or something to do all of that. Okay.
You were able to switch majors, right?
Yes, I was. So actually, you start off as a pre-psychobio major because it's an impacted major. You start off as pre-psychobio, and then after you take a certain amount of classes in psychobio, then you change to like full-time psychobio. And it's pretty easy to change into something like neuroscience because people think that's a more difficult major and whatnot. So, but something like more impacted, to say like switch from neuroscience to psychobio, it's a little bit more challenging, to be honest. Yeah, so is there, okay, Chloe has to leave, that's okay. Okay, so I did get a question, a direct message question, and I'm just gonna answer this so everyone can hear. Do you actually mind, copying and pasting it again? So I can, otherwise I might not be able to find it. Okay, so the question was, how do you approach teachers and develop mentorships? Because a lot of professors have a lot of students, for example, another student trying to get my attention for recommendations letter. I think that's a really good question, first off. It can kind of seem like when a student tries to reach out, it's to get something in return. I think the best way to reach out to a professor is to first reach out for material, like in regards to material, because they are there to teach you. And if you develop kind of a connection just like from the material first, you can first see like how you jive with them. Like I wouldn't be so hard set on like making this particular professor your mentor. I think you will figure out that there are certain personalities of professors that you resonate with more and you can get along with really well. Those are the kinds of professors that you probably want to foster stronger mentorships with, or you want to be their mentee. And there are also just some professors that are more than willing and more like receptive to wanting to be your mentor than others, and some that just have more time to do it. So I think the best way to gauge that is going to their office hours and asking questions, like thoughtful questions about the material first. And then once you do that, then sometimes you can kind of ask them about like general advice of like, like thanks so much for, giving me certain advice of like how to understand this better. I'm like, this is important for me. I'm interested in medicine or something like that. And then like kind of see how receptive they are to giving you more feedback of like how to improve, maybe from a like professional standpoint. I think the more you talk with the professor, the better you will be able to gauge if they want to form a mentorship relationship with you. And again, like if the first professor that you talk to doesn't seem like they want to, like, I know it's like hard sometimes. You're like, oh man, like I like took all this time to try and figure out like who might be a good mentor or something like that. And then it turned out that we didn't like connect that well. It's okay. Like there are certain professors that it was just they were my professor and that's the extent of it. And there's some that you just really connect with. And those are the professors that you want to stick with and continue to see during office hours. And then maybe like start talking about non-school work and like just share certain interests with them. That's the way I would go about it. What did that kind of help answer the question? Was there like any more clarifying points to that you wanted anyone else can kind of chime in too. Okay, good. Like another thing is that if you end up doing certain research and you have something called a PI or a principal investigator, a lot of times you will, the admissions committee will want you to have a letter of rec from that principal investigator. Just because I'm like a part of the admissions committee at UMass, or just like one of many, but just helping them out, like seeing that they do want to make sure that anything that you put in significant time into, such as like volunteering in a lab, research lab of some sort, and you put in like 500 hours or 300 hours in this one lab, and you don't get a letter of recommendation from the PI, it seems kind of odd. Like that during those 300 hours, you didn't form, like they can't vouch for your like diligence or your personality or something like that. So just make sure, like any long-term investment of a lab, like of a year or something like that, that you can see yourself developing a strong mentorship and connection with that lead investigator or principal investigator, because they kind of know coming in that you're giving them free labor. In return, you probably want a pretty good letter of right. Like they should kind of think that they're going to write you a good letter of recommendation or something like that. And you do want to show to them that, you know, you are capable and that you are able to successfully implement the scientific method or something like that. I think there might be another question in the chat. Let's see. So for someone who is currently a psychology major, and you can most certainly go into psychiatry, but you do not have to go into psychiatry. Whatever you do in undergrad is completely up to you and up to your interests. For example, I did neuroscience. That does not mean I'm going to go into neurology. I can go into whatever I decide I want to go into, and that's up to your own discretion and like what you enjoy the most and what do you see yourself enjoying the most. You'll figure that out mostly. I mean, I have an idea of what I want to do, but I know I will be able to strengthen my convictions in third and fourth year when I do my rotations. So like doing psychology does not mean that you can only do psychiatry or that you can't do psychiatry. It's pretty much up to you, and it's like what you learn and how you grow, like during as a psychology major, and like what you learn from that you can share in your personal statement and like wherever you feel fitted, but it most certainly does not limit you. I know one of my friends from swimming who's currently a resident at Mass General. She went to Harvard Medical School. She was an anthropology major, so she didn't do like quote unquote a hard science for her undergraduate degree. So whatever you choose as your undergraduate degree, it should be because you love it or you really enjoy it. It has not, like, it shouldn't, you shouldn't feel like it limits you in any capacity to do what you want to do in the future in medicine. So don't feel like that's limiting. All right, let's see. Okay, so one thing was that since I would watch lectures and not go to lecture because I was a bad student, or I am a bad student, what would I do when the lectures were actually being held? So that's up to your discretion. For some people, they would be sleeping, because if there's an 8 a.m. lecture and you're more of a night owl, they would be sleeping at that time, and then they would wake up at around noon and then do all their lectures and stay up until 2 a.m. to do their work. Again, own discretion. For me, what I did was I would go to the gym and I would review stuff from past lectures. So when the lectures were going on and being recorded, I would review stuff and do the actual, what I consider actually studying during that time, because I don't think going to lecture is studying. And I don't think, like, the way I view lecture is that's your first pass at the material. You need multiple passes for the material to really stick, and you need to interact with it in multiple different ways, whether that be through Quizlet, Anki, talking with a friend, and drawing it all out on a whiteboard. That's what I think of when I think of studying. I don't think of going to lecture as studying. That's just my first exposure to the material. And that's the reason why I try and speed that up. And so during that time, again, I study during that time, or I'm at the gym or swimming. Or if I'm just not feeling it that day, I'm just sleeping or cooking, talking to my family, pretty much whatever I think I need to do at that point in time, whether that be self-care or getting through the material that I need to get through. That's what I do. A good way to gauge it is, like, I normally I'm a pen and paper kind of person. So I like write down my to-do list. Just like, I don't know if you can see it. I think the virtual background is like getting rid of it. But I write down what I need to do, and I just like check it off and stuff like that. So as long as I get done what I set myself out to for that day, it doesn't matter when I do it. It's just a matter of making sure that I get to it so I can feel like I've accomplished something for that day. And being flexible and kind to yourself is also very important. Any other questions? I'm sorry I sound like a broken record with this self-care. There's literally, so at UMass, we have something called learning communities, where it's kind of like, if you guys watch Harry Potter, it's kind of like Harry Potter, where you get sorted into a house, like Gryffindor or Ravenclaw or something like that. You get sorted into it at the beginning of the year during something called MOA, the Massachusetts Outdoor Experience. And then I forgot where I was going with this. Yeah, it's not MOA, but it's very close, right? It's just an E instead of an A. But where was I going with this? I'm sorry. I forgot where I was going with this, why I was mentioning the learning communities. I lost my train of thought because I started talking about MOA. Mental health, that's right. One of the, thank you, Amy. There is one house called Brightwood that literally their mantra is self-care. Like, all they say is self-care, and that's their mantra. Another one is called Blackstone, and theirs is compassion. So, like, each house has kind of like their own mantra. And so one of them is self-care. I'm not in Brightwood because I'm in a different house, but I do resonate. I have a lot of friends in Brightwood because we have similar philosophies. Anything else? Thank you guys all for like staying here and listening to me babble on about myself and about self-care and whatnot. I feel like just talking nonstop.
No, we really appreciate it. I thought you were like super motivating because especially during COVID, it's hard to see like mentors and everything, but it was really empowering. I felt like I could do it. Like, I like how you were saying, I love where I came from and how is it going so far, because like every time I talk about like STEM classes I'm taking or medicine, I attach like a crying emoji because it's not easy.
It's really not easy. And I think one thing is that, like, people say it's not where you start, and I really don't even think it's where you end. It's kind of who you become in the process that I find to be the most important. Like, do you like who you're becoming and how you are developing as a person? And if you can say yes to that, keep going. Like, keep on doing what you're doing, and you will get to where you want to be. It's just a matter of time and a lot of hard work that as long as you add meaning and purpose to it, it will feel worth it.
Okay, so if nobody else has any questions, that's going to conclude our meeting. Thank you again so much for coming. Like, I learned a lot. It was really cool to ooh, the co-founder of MOA. Thank you so much. Other than that, everyone's free to go. Today's Friday. Have a good Friday. Good luck studying. Oh, thank you for your email. We will
Feel
definitely
free to
share
reach
this out.
out. Yeah, of course. Thank you guys all for coming, and best of luck on all your midterms. You guys got this. You guys got this.
It's anatomy and physiology midterm. So
Ooh, that's fun. That's gonna help you in med school.
yeah, you're talking about the brachial plexus, and I was like,
Oh yeah. Have you seen the YouTube video about Marmu?
no, I haven't.
All right, I'll have to send it to you, Amy.
Okay.
Why don't you email me? If you email me, I'll send it to you because I don't have your email.
Yeah, what is the Marmu?
Marmu.
Marmu. How do you spell it? Okay, I'll make it cute.
It's like musculocutaneous auxiliary.
Ooh.
Radial. Ooh, I haven't reviewed this in a while. But yeah, you'll get it down. You can draw the brachial plexus in 20 seconds with that video.
Oh my God.
I'll
really?
share it with you. Just email me.
Okay.
You want my email?
Yes, I did.
All righty. Thank y'all. Thanks
Thank
again for
you.
having me. Best of luck. You guys got this. Again, feel free
You
to reach out.
too. You too. Future MD.
Bye.